Today I'm going to show you a newly released action camera that boasts 4K 30 with electronic image stabilization and also 4K 60. It's by a company called Vantop. It's the new Moment 6S, and that's coming right up. So let's take a look and see what we've got inside the box here. Like I said, it is packaged like a nice bottle of wine on the outside of the box from Vantop. It's one of their Moment series cameras. Let's see what we've got inside. Well, let's see. Vantop, Feel This Moment 6S. I don't know if you can see that. This one sports 4K 60 frames per second. Has the Umbrella chipset, 12 megapixel sensor, smooth flow image stabilization. Has dual screens, 8x slow motion, supports RAW, is waterproof to 100 feet, a USB Type-C connector, and a remote control. Let's open up the rest of this and get this camera out and take a look at it. All right, let's get an X-Acto knife here, and we'll cut through this tape that's sealing the top from the bottom. So we see this got the waterproof case, says good for 100 meters, or was it 100 feet? 100 feet, okay. So I'll make sure I don't misquote myself. First impressions are always important. And feels good. It's got a rubberized plastic feel to the outside of the camera. Gosh, this thing looks familiar. Hang on a second. Okay, you remember when I said that this looks familiar? I'll tell you what looks familiar, and that's going to be this top heat dissipation area, the shutter button, the dual screen part, power button. Well, this reminds me of the SJ8 Pro. From the two LEDs to the front screen to the USB Type-C power drawer. Let's see what's on this side. Power button on this side. So it looks very familiar. It looks like a rebranded SJ8 Pro. Or it just could be just very coincidental. I don't know. Well, enough of the SJ8 Pro. We're going to look at this Vantop. 60 frames per second in 4K. We're going to test it out and see, does it hold up to mustard here? Right now it is 5 minutes after 5 p.m. Just starting to drizzle a little bit. The storm is coming in. And just want to see video quality because it is starting to get dark outside. 4K, 30 frames per second. So we'll see how the electronic image stabilization is on this. Back of the screen looks nice and vibrant, but we'll talk more about this camera later on in the video. Now we're at 1080, 30 frames per second. Image stabilization still on, still handheld. Now we're at 2.7K, 30 frames per second. Just walking around the pool handheld, see how the stabilization is. look up in the tree section. I'm looking for some purple fringing or chromatic aberration. From what I see in the back of the screen, the image looks very nice, except for the little bit of over yellowing of the pillars, which are Austin stones, so they're more white, slightly a little bit sandy colored. Now we're at 4K 60 frames per second. No electronic image stabilization offered, but we can see if the image looks nice and smooth at 60 frames per second. Because you can always stick this in a gimbal. Looks like I have a little mole mound right there. That's starting up. And it's fall, the leaves are changing, and I really enjoy the changing of the color of the leaves. So this is 60 frames per second. Starting to rain, and I'm shooting 4K 60 frames per second, hand holding this again. I want to test out the 4K 60 because the first time I tested it, there was some glitching with some little artifacts, and I'll kind of show you what that looked like. And just so you have a rough idea, but the color was just like, it went crazy, like the processor couldn't keep up with it. So we're going to test it again just to make sure that it actually works good, like it's supposed to. Or is it just when the file first starts, you get that little crazy color problem that happens, and then it kind of smooths itself out. But we'll kind of see now how it looks. Like I said, there is no stabilization at 4K 60, but that's okay. Okay, this is 4K 30 frames per second with EIS off. I'm just going to run to the end of the driveway so you can see what the looks like without electronic image stabilization and with. Okay, now time for 4K 30 frames per second with EIS on and running down the driveway. Alright, now time to test out the little lapel microphone that comes with this camera. So first we're going to do the onboard microphone audio test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and now I'm using the external lapel microphone that comes with the Vantop camera. You can see right there. So we're going to do a quick audio test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like I said, I have the microphone volume set to 8 in camera. So we'll see how this sounds with the external microphone. So now we're in 1080p, 30 frames per second, just hand holding this with EIS on. 1080p is probably going to be one of the most popular resolutions Even though 4K is a buzzword, and I've said it before, 4K is the buzzword. But a lot of people, they don't have either, number one, a computer to be able to handle 4K footage, or number two, they don't have a monitor that can get the enjoyment out of 4K footage, so they just deal with 1080. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with 1080. But since this entire video is shot in 4K, this 1080 is being upscaled up to 4K so that at least the video is consistent all the way through. Alright, now since we're comparing both of these cameras, since the Vantop looks just like the SJ8 Pro, we're going to do them side by side, 4K 30 frames per second, just to see how the stabilization is between the two, what the colors look like between the two. Go into direct sunlight. And then just walk in again just to see image quality between the two, 4K 30 frames per second. From what I can see on the back of the screen, the field of view seems to be the same. One more time around the pool, and then we'll just check the image quality and check the stabilization and check the colors, see if they look the same. So this is the moment of the video where we need to talk about the elephant that's in the room, and that's going to be that the Vantop Moment 6S, even though it's a great build quality and all that stuff, but let's talk about the biggest standout, is that it is just a rebranded SJ8 Pro. Now, there is everything that's identical about this camera to the SJCAM SJ8 Pro. From the top to the side, the casing, the fact that it's using the Umbrella H22 chipset, the rear screen, even when it comes to the menu layout, when you look at the user interface, yes, it does say Vantop when you first turn it on, but then the user interface is nearly identical. There's a couple of items that have been shuffled around where screensaver will be up here in the menu and it's down a couple in the Vantop. And I guess the biggest thing that let's just talk about is, first off, 4K 60. There is a huge issue with 4K 60 going out of sync. The audio goes way out of sync. And also that little color blotching that you saw, it's almost like for some reason the processor couldn't start up correctly, and it happened to me a couple of times, and I just wanted to show that one instance that happened the first time that I used 4K 60, but the audio goes out of sync. I've contacted Vantop regarding it. They said that I was the only reviewer that had made any comment about any problem with the visuals of this camera and also the audio going out of sync at 4K 60. So is there a possibility that I got a faulty unit? There's a possibility. But I think the probability is that the firmware needs to be tweaked up on this. That so much of this is identical to the SJ8 Pro that there's a couple of parameters that need to be worked on. Coloring is going to be one of them. It hints a little bit warmer, but that's not that big of a deal. You can fix that in post. You know, the 1080p looks very nice. The 2.7K looks nice. The electronic image stabilization is okay. For some reason, it looks like the SJ8 Pro has got the stabilization a little bit better than what the Vantop's Moment 6S does. Here's the thing, you know, when a company says that they're coming out with a new camera, you and I as consumers are under the assumption that they have developed this camera. Not that this camera was on Alibaba, and I'm not saying that it was, but let's just hypothetically, and then it's just a simple rebranding. You get Vantop printed here, you get it printed there, and you get a little bit of customization on the firmware, and that's it. And then you say, hello, this is mine. And I know there's going to be some people out there that say, well, so what? You know, I mean, if it's a little bit cheaper, and this one is a little bit less expensive than the SJ8 Pro. This one, I think they're featuring now, because it just got released today. It is at 177 or 179. Don't quote me, I'll have a link in the description below so that you can check it out for yourself. I like the fact that it comes with an external microphone. The external microphone is the exact same as the SJ8 Pro's external microphone, because I actually plugged it into the SJ8 Pro and it worked in the SJ8 Pro. So I know that there's some cross compatibility there that makes me really lean on the side that this is just a rebranded SJ8 Pro. Now, is that something that SJCAM has done in cooperation? Maybe they've sold off the rights to this camera to another company to rebrand it. That I don't know. I'm not privy to any of that. All I know is that I'm here to honestly review products that are sent to me. So looking at this camera, what's my final verdict? It's tough. It is tough because it does shoot nice 4K 30 frames per second. There was a couple of instances where it looked like it dropped a frame here and there. The 1080 at 120 frames per second looked a little muddy to me. You know, and I'm not trying to compare these budget action cameras to like the GoPro Hero 8. You know, but we've gotten used to a certain amount of quality. And I know that I'm just talking on and on and on, but it's really important when us consumers are looking at rebranded products. And I'll give you a great example. There was a company called MG Cool, and they had their Explorer series, the Explorer Pro 1, the Explorer Pro 2. I think they had a couple of models before that, and then they came out with the Explorer Pro 3. And then MG Cool disappeared. It's like they just went out of business, it appears. And then Akaso came out with the V50 Pro. And it was identical to MG Cool's Explorer Pro 3. This camera, do I recommend this camera even though it is less expensive than the SJ8 Pro? And I'll leave a caveat. If Vantop can address the firmware and some of these little glitches, because I did contact Vantop. They said, you know, like I told you earlier, they had never heard of any of these problems from any of the other reviewers. I just, you know, if they can tweak the firmware, get it to be a little bit more stable. I've had a couple instances where it froze up on me. Then I would recommend it. But right now, the way that it sits, you know, $177 is a lot of money. We've got the holidays coming up, and I know a GoPro is $400, or maybe you can get it for $379. Who knows? Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals going on. But it's just hard for me to recommend a camera that's got so many little glitches that go on with it. And I will tell you what I will do. At this point, I cannot recommend this camera. Let's just call it like it is. I can't. I think it has a lot of issues that need to be addressed. But if Vantop updates the firmware to this camera and fixes these issues and makes it stable and makes 4K actually usable and gets the video and audio in sync, and where this massive color pixelation freeze is resolved, I will do a follow-up video and I will eat crow and say, you know what? My first impression was wrong. Well, not wrong, because it's not. but my first impression has changed because they've updated the firmware. So if they update the firmware, they fix these issues, I will definitely update you guys to let you know that it has been resolved and it's a camera worth looking at. But at the moment, right now, I would look at some of the other options that you have out there. Tell me your thoughts about the Vantop Moment 6S. Comment below, share the video around. It is holiday time, and maybe, possibly, I got a bad one. Vantop, if I did get a bad one, send me one that is actually properly working, and I will make an entirely new video. It is Thanksgiving today, so enjoy your turkey. There's tons of sales that are going to be going on. I will be doing an update with little Black Friday sales. So tomorrow, stay tuned. I'm either going to do it in a community tab or I'll actually post up a video, because I know there's going to be a ton of sales on a bunch of items that you tech people out there, you guys that are interested in tech and anything that's got electricity running through it, drones, cameras, gimbals, I'm going to have links to all these great sales for you. So until the next video, I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a good one, and that's it. Bye.